It is a little bit after 6. We'll go ahead and begin the January 28th Social Circle Planning Commission meeting. We do have a new member, and at this time, I'll let the mayor come up and swear in the new member, and then we'll have a quorum.
John, I think we've done this before, haven't we? So you're familiar with the process. I'll say, you state your name. I'm not going to ask you to repeat all this because it's complicated enough just to read it. At the end, you can confirm your agreement to it. Okay, please raise your right hand. I, John Gordon, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of member of the City of Social Circle, Georgia Planning Commission, and to the best of my ability, support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of Georgia, and the Charter, ordinances, and regulations of the City of Social Circle. I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money due this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof. I'm not the holder of any office of trust under the government of the United States, any other state, or any foreign state which I, by the laws of the state of Georgia, am prohibited from holding. I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia. I've been a resident of the City of Social Circle for the time required by the Constitution and laws of this state. I will perform the duties of my office in the best interest of the City of Social Circle to the best of my ability, without fear, favor, affection, reward, or expectation thereof. So help me God. Congratulations. Thank you for serving.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right. So with that, we do now have a quorum with, let the record show, Ms. Glenda Brown, Scott Gaither, Adolphus Gaither, and John Gardner are present. Those members that are absent are Signora Jackson, Travis Parr, and Curtis Mullins. For those of us, Adolphus and Glenda, that we were here in December, we have the minutes of the December 19th Planning Commission. Do you see any errors or omissions, things that need to be corrected? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as published.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving right along, we're going to the public hearing. So tonight we have a few public hearings for those of you that are here. Before we begin, I want to read just to kind of hit some highlights of rules of public hearings, and let the record show that Ms. Signora Jackson has entered the meeting, so we are well over a quorum now. So before we begin on a public hearing, what we'll do here is the staff, Ashley, will introduce the item, go over the item application, and go over the staff recommendation. The Planning Commission will then may ask Ashley questions regarding the application of the applicant or how it affects the city, the future land use map, zoning map, so on and so forth. After conclusion upon questions of the staff, we'll call upon the public hearing to begin. The public hearing will begin with the applicant coming to the podium, stating his or her name for the record, and giving a presentation. The applicant has a total of 10 minutes. The applicant does not have to use all 10 minutes. They can reserve some time for rebuttal. Upon conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the chair will call upon those who have signed up to speak in favor of the request. All those who have an opportunity to speak in favor will get a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each. Upon conclusion of those in favor, the chair will call upon those that signed up to speak in opposition. Again, they get a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes each. Upon conclusion of those who would like to speak in opposition, if the applicant has reserved any time for rebuttal, he or she may use that at that time for the total allotment of 10 minutes. Upon conclusion of the public hearing, staff may ask, or the Planning Commission members may ask the applicant additional questions or may ask staff additional questions. Upon conclusion of that deliberation, we will entertain a motion. Planning Commission makes recommendations, not decisions. Decisions are made by the mayor and council, so our recommendations will be forwarded along with the staff recommendations on each request to the mayor and council, and they will likewise hold a public hearing at a later time. And then they make a decision. So thank you all for being here. That was off the cuff, trying to remember what our rules and regulations are. So we'll jump right into rezoning request 2025 number 1. This is a request at 415 Walnut Street. Ashley?
Yeah, so this request is to rezone the property from RMD. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a typo in the staff report, you guys. The request is to rezone the property from RMD to R15 or Residential District 15 in order to satisfy dimensional requirements and allow the parcel to be split for the purpose of a future residential use. The proposed rezone of this property is to split the property, and it should not have an adverse effect on the current use of the property and would keep it in line with the character area of the future land use map. And we have the proposed plat for you under Exhibit A in your packets. The existing parcel would be divided into 2 parcels, with each being a little under 1/2 of an acre. The newly created parcel would be accessible only from Chestnut Street, so their driveway would be off Chestnut Street. They'd have a Chestnut Street address. There's currently a single-family residential home on the property already on the Walnut Street side. So this has a double road frontage, which is, kind of an extenuating circumstance. So it does have adequate street frontage. The split would not have any adverse effects on that portion of the property with regard to setbacks. So it would still meet all of the dimensional requirements set forth by the UDC. Just to draw your attention to a couple things in the staff analysis, under compatibility, I just want to point out that this is compatible in terms of matching the character of the area as indicated on the future land use map. It's identified as central historic character area, and that includes residential developments as an appropriate use or homes as an appropriate use. And question number 3 is, are there any other existing or changing conditions affecting the use and development of the property, which gives supporting grounds for either approval or disapproval? We just wanted to point out to you guys that there is water in the area, but the closest sewer main is up towards the intersection of Spring Street and Chestnut, so the developer would be responsible for tying into the nearest sewer main. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone from RMD to Residential 15.
Thank you, Ashley. Real quick, so on the plat you have on the screen and exhibit in the staff report, track 2 does meet all the dimensional requirements for the R15 zoning district being requested, correct?
That is correct. The minimum lot size for R15 is 15,000 square feet, so this is over that. So if this request were to get approved, the applicant then would submit this plat for approval by staff, and they would be able to potentially build a home on that property.
Thank you. At this time, I call up the applicant, Mr. Steinhauser.
Trent Steinauer, 3628 Mount Perrin Church Road, Social Circle. Yeah, like Miss Ashley said, looking to rezone that from RMD to R15, build a single-family home, 1,600 to 1,800 square foot, similar to what's at the front of Chestnut. Yeah, front of Chestnut and Spring Street at 399 and 415. So that's what we're seeking to do. And any questions, anything I can answer?
I believe you've been here before asking for something similar, right?
Yes,
Last
sir.
year? Thank you for that. Should the request be approved to rezone and the plat be recorded, do you foresee any issues bringing sewer to the site from Spring?
Yeah, I've talked to, and I'm gonna miss his name right now, but the head of the sewer department.
Jay? Yeah.
The manhole is further down Chestnut. On the utilities maps that he sent me from turnipseed.com is what Social Circle uses. It shows sewer and water running up Chestnut, further up all the way. So that's something that we are trying to verify at this moment. The other accessibility point would be pumping up to the top of the hill at Walnut and Spring Street at a lateral up there.
Yeah.
So those two things, we're gonna meet this week and walk over it, cause that was between the map and what Miss Ashley said, being further down there, that could be cost prohibitive of building a lot to bring that manhole all the way up. But if the lines are up there like the map says and what the utilities have located, then water and sewer would be an easy gravity feed down Chestnut to Spring Street, or pumping it up to Spring Street up to the top using a pump system like you see on septic tanks and different versions like that.
Yep.
So that is the only thing I see. Other than that, the lot sits well, should be a nice family home for a resident, new resident, and similar to what we built down the street.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. Thank you, sir. And I think you signed up to be the speaker in favor.
Yeah.
You have 10 minutes on that aspect.
Well, no, you got my minute in case I need the other
Okay.
9. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. And there's no one to speak in opposition, so at this time, the chair will close the public hearing. I just want to verify, Ashley, I know you said in the staff report that the requested zoning R15 is consistent with the surrounding area. Is that correct?
Yes, adjacent property zonings are RMD, ag, and business. With the passing of the UDC, the intent of the old RMD districts meets the intent of the new R15. So while it does appear to look like a spot zoning, the use would be similar to what the RMD was for this area, if that makes sense. I hope I worded that well enough for everybody.
So for this particular parcel, it would go from this one color yellow to a brighter color yellow.
Correct. It would go from like this mustardy yellow to true
Canary.
canary. Yeah. Not the butter,
Yeah.
but the canary.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions of staff? I mean, this will allow a use, looking at the table of permitted uses, and when we think of zoning, we have to look at all the proposed uses and how they can impact an area. The R15 zoning district is sort of a less intense district than RMD, and it would allow a compatible use with everything that's been developed around it. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Well, will he be able to get back with somebody about whether the water and sewage does meet what she said it's supposed to?
Yeah, so it sounds like he's been meeting with Public Works already about this, and with some of our mapping, yes, we have mapped out the utilities, but some of that knowledge also lives in the heads of some folks. So I'm sure Jay has maybe called up Mr. Curtis and said, hey, do you remember if this runs all the way down Chestnut or not?
Okay.
But it sounds like they're meeting and they're going to discuss possibilities later this week. So, especially since it's going to be so nice out.
If there's no other questions, comments, concerns, the chair will entertain a motion for the request to rezone 415 Walnut Street from RMD to R15.
Motion made.
We have a motion
Second.
and we have a second to approve the request or approve the rezoning as requested. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Let the motion pass unanimously. The next item on the agenda is rezoning. It is 2025 of number 2 of the year. This is for a Malcolm Road property from O&I to light industrial to expand a business operation. Ashley, can you walk us through, please?
Yeah, so turn my microphone on. So this request is a request to rezone this property from, or a portion of this property from office institutional to light industrial. In your packets, you'll see on the map, it's not the whole of the property. It's really just the northern part of that property. The proposed rezone of this property is to satisfy the permitted use requirements as outlined in Table 2.3.1 of the city's UDC, which would allow for equipment and material storage along with an office space in light industrial zoning. This property is currently characterized as the industrial character area, so the proposed rezoning and use would align with the future land use map and our comprehensive plan. The property does lie within the watershed protection overlay. So the developer would be responsible for ensuring that all requirements outlined in section 5.3 of the UDC are met. There are also no established ditches along Malcolm Road, so the developer would also be responsible for addressing any stormwater drainage issues that currently exist. There would be no supplemental standards attached to the proposed use as equipment and material storage, because that's a fully permitted use under light industrial. The site development and design standards for the proposed use would be addressed during plan submittal phase and would be required to meet the standards outlined in section 3.4.2 of the city's UDC, and that section covers industrial building design standards. As I mentioned before, it's compatible with the character area of the future land use map, and staff recommends approval of the request from office institutional to light industrial.
Thank you, Ashley. You said the front portion of the property.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the maps, this is not two separate parcels?
It actually, it hasn't been reflected on the tax records yet, but there is, if you look in your packets, there is a plat. I think I have it on the PowerPoint too.
Right
So there's a plat. So this is really just for tract 1 and tract 2.
Okay.
Which is highlighted in their application as well. They just haven't been designated as a tax parcel yet. So I'm not, I'd have to go back and see if this plat has been recorded. It has been approved by my office, but I don't know if it's been recorded with the county yet. I believe it has, but it has not been transcribed onto Q Public.
Okay. My concern is
Split zoning.
split zoning on a single piece of property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a valid concern. But like I said, this plat has come across my desk, and for selling purposes, I am 99.9% sure it has been recorded.
So we have, and it's, I may have to borrow Signor's glasses. We have track 1, track 2, track 3.
Yes, so this is just for tract 1 and 2.
So, but track 3 is a separate.
Is a
parcel,
separate parcel,
and
it will remain a separate
as
parcel.
zone O and I.
Correct.
Okay. My next question, thank you for clarifying
Yes.
that. I'm always cautious about trying to split zone a piece of
100.
property.
Yes, I appreciate that.
What is the buffer requirement between industrial and then the abutting single-family residential on Ronthor Drive?
Give me one moment, and I will be happy to look that up for you.
Okay.
I don't believe it's any more than 40 feet.
Okay.
It will be a 40-foot buffer along the residential on the west side. All those houses that front.
On Ronthor?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I believe it will be 40 feet through there,
Okay.
but I think on the O&I it might only be 30. So, and maybe even 20. So let me.
And it's likely that,
So from. So for industrial uses, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I believe that's zone R15.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it would be a 50-foot buffer along the R15 and R25 zoning districts. And for, depending on what the use is of the office institutional, it would be, if it's a multi-unit building use, it would be 30 feet. And if it was anything else, there would be no buffer along the office institutional side.
Okay. Okay. And then as far as the outdoor storage, are there any limitations due to it being within the watershed protection overlay regarding the storage of equipment materials outside?
There is an impervious surface ratio requirement, so they wouldn't be able to go over 25% impervious surface. So the surfacing of that storage area would probably more than likely have to be a pervious surface, meaning that water can penetrate it. But let me get to that part of the UDC here. Off the top of my head, so there are a couple prohibited uses. They can't have any hazardous waste treatment or disposal facilities. They can't have landfills. They can't put any new septic tanks or drainage fields. They can't have any mining or quarrying. But it doesn't look like any type of storage is a prohibited use. So they should be able to do that. But they do have some stormwater stuff to really kind of focus in on. And then also that impervious surface ratio is a lot more strict than just being in light industrial. They only can have 25%. That isn't allowed to have a variance. So they have to be that 25%.
It cannot exceed more than 25%.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ashley at this time? Okay. Mr. Jones, I think you're the applicant, sir. Yep. Oh, sorry.
I'm also a city member on the, development board and have had previous engagement with this property. So I am going to recuse myself from the hearing and the discussion, whether to recommend or not.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And I'm recommending it.
Please let the record show that Mr. Gardner has recused himself due to existing membership to the DDA or to the Development
SCDA,
Authority.
yeah.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
So my name's Thomas Jones. I'm the CEO of MHB Paving. MHB Paving is a business locally. We've been around since 1995. We're currently based out of Oxford. We're looking to move our shop out this way. We're gonna keep our existing shop in Oxford for certain uses. We've got silos and stuff that it won't coincide with this property. So we're gonna keep a lot of our dump trucks and stuff that's more central towards Atlanta. We're gonna keep those for logistics purpose in Oxford. This is gonna be more for our shop maintenance and equipment storage. We don't often have it all the time, but there are certainly times that we need it. We outgrew that space about 10 years ago, and we've been really limping along trying to find the appropriate place. I'm born and raised here in Social Circle. I've kind of had a lifelong dream of bringing our guys back home. There's a lot of people from Social Circle. We're currently tied in with the school system. We're actively trying to get as many employees from the school system and locally, have very good success with the type of work quality we get out of here. And I mean, it's simple. I just want to come home. You know, I live in Social Circle, have my whole life. So any questions for me? As far as the buffer, if you'll note, we've got a natural buffer there from the houses on the residential side. There's the floodplain is going to buffer them well more than 40 feet. I think in a lot of cases more than 100 feet before we're going to start our retention pond and stuff like that for our storm water.
Mr. Jones, thank you. In your application, there's a couple, it looks like a site plan proposal from Peak Steel, and then on the backside, do you intend to take both properties, the one that's zoned, like your site showing here is right there, and then also potentially that one as well?
Okay, so the truth of the matter there is I tried to purchase the entire 30 acres
Okay.
there. And I think at the time there may have been other interest in those areas, and at that time the Development Authority thought it was best to
split it.
subdivide it. So at that time they said we can sell you guys
These-
12 of the 30 acres.
Okay.
And as we went through the motions, I put all this plan together and everything. Then it came back up. Well, maybe possibly we'll do something with the 6 acres as well. The future purpose of the 6 acres up top is if our office continues to grow, which is right here in downtown Social Circle, that we move a office / warehouse out there, and that'll be our primary office rather than right downtown.
Okay.
That's future use. I don't see that in the near future, but
So should your request be approved, is it the intent to just put a single building out there for now for
Yes, sir.
shop and a little bit of storage?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we're moving forward with the application. I mean, obviously, we want to rezone both at this time, but we're moving forward with the shop on the lower parcel,
Yes, sir.
and then future use with the office on the upper parcel.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is, you know, as I'm looking at it, you've got a piece that's split and the two tracks, track 1 and 2. And looking at this small rendering, it looks like it's extending all the way down from.
May I see the rendering you have?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Because I think the drawing you have.
Yeah. So what I was,
Okay, so this was based on the 30 acres. This is what I was wanting to do.
Okay.
This is if I was able to purchase the whole 30.
Yes, sir.
And really, this should have been chopped off like that. It should have, this, if you'll look at what you have on there.
Yes, sir.
That represents the 12-acre tract.
Yes, sir. And the reason I was asking is, would it make more sense for for things to go in motion that the entire 30 acres is zoned the same if it's going to be under the same use at some point? Since it's two parcels, then if you guys end up picking up that other piece, that southern piece, you'd be right back before us asking for a change of zoning.
Sure.
And I was just trying to eliminate a possible step.
And to answer that, you want me to sit back over here?
Sure, that's fine.
Had they sold me the entire 30 acres, the
You'd be
answer would be
rezoning.
yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Outside of that, I can't speak of what the city's use is.
Okay. All right. So at some point, maybe we might see you back.
I would 100%, if it was available, I would take that opportunity.
We'll
Yes,
do
sir.
what we can.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions of Mr. Jones regarding his request? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones is the only person signed up to speak in favor. Obviously, you have that opportunity if you want to speak in favor outside of being an applicant, but you don't have to. We don't have anyone signed up to speak in opposition. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. Well, yes, sir.
I didn't know which one to find.
Okay.
I wanted to speak on that behalf.
Would you like to come up to the podium, please, and state your name and state if you're speaking in favor of or in opposition to?
Well, I'm Larry Ellison, and I recently purchased some property on Runthor. And I'm not saying that I oppose it or favor it.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to get a more clarification on the residential part.
Yes, sir.
Would that affect the property taxes at all with the residential area by having a light industrial business behind their property that I recently purchased?
That is a very good question. So here's, in summary, the change of zoning of this property from O&I to light industrial will not affect taxes. What affects taxes are, for residential purposes, would be residential properties nearby that sell for a higher price, improvements to your property, whether you do an addition or a major remodel to your property, that would affect the taxes. Someone building an industrial building near your residential won't affect your taxes because they're apples and oranges. They can't compare an industrial building and new construction industrial or new construction commercial and raise your taxes based upon the value of that new building because it's not apples to apples. Now, if this were developed residentially and somebody built 1 or 30 homes on it, then those could impact your property values, but not a residential or a industrial building being built behind your property.
Okay, all right, that's my question. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, we will close the public hearing. Are there any questions, comments, concerns that?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's on Rumford Road, will they be driving in off of Malcolm Road, or be coming in off of Rumford Road?
So there's no direct access on this property from Ronther. And for the purpose of the properties that they purchased, their only access point would either be Malcolm or, I'm sorry, I don't have my map in front of me. It would be Malcolm or, that's the railroad.
Industrial Boulevard.
Industrial Boulevard. Thank you. So they would have to,
Industrial Boulevard.
they would have to either access off of Industrial Boulevard or Malcolm Road. So those would be their only two access points.
So the reason I was asking that question is because I ride on Malcolm Road sometimes. If they're gonna have to come down that way, wouldn't that road have to be wider?
I would have to look into what the right of way is. And the applicant may be able to speak better to this, but I would venture to guess that they will probably they have more room to build an entrance off of Industrial Boulevard, and that one is already built for truck traffic. So I would make an educated guess that that's probably where the entrance is going to be, but we do have the applicant here that may be able to answer that question a little bit better.
So the type of trucks we'll have coming and going, meaning the bigger trucks, I can't say that every guy I have won't drive their personal vehicle or a pickup truck up and down Malcolm Road. It wouldn't suffice us to come up and down Malcolm Road. It would put a burden on our vehicles and stuff. Our access point intention is to turn right out of Industrial and go out to the bypass.
I'm just curious.
No, I
because
understand.
I'm familiar with that road.
Yes, ma'am.
It's little.
It is, it's small. Now, the future use, we may have an interest on coming out of there, but it's the type of equipment we have coming and going is just, it would make no sense for us to, it just make it harder on the drivers.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ashley, and this is a total of 18 acres, is that correct?
That is correct.
Great. All right. With no other questions or comments,
I want to find out, how far will it be from the property line, from the residential area? How far will the business be from the buffer zone?
They have to have at least 50 feet from their property line to any construction. And based off of this site plan here on the screen, on the plat, this floodplain would also hinder them from encroaching on that residential. So here's the residential stuff right here that fronts on Ronther, and this kind of gray area right here is a floodplain, so they wouldn't be able to kind of cross into that without doing some major work with the EPD that I'm sure they don't want to get into.
Okay, thank you.
all right, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. We have a motion to recommend to the mayor and council to approve the rezoning request for 0 Malcolm Road, tax parcel SC 13004-7A00, total of 18 plus minus acres, from office institutional to light industrial. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, and the next item on our agenda is a text amendment to the UDC to table 8.2.2.c regarding minimum number of access points. Ashley, would you please do us the favor?
Yeah, so the issue that we had here, we want to modernize the access requirements to better mirror the amendments that were made to the International Fire Code regarding exceptions to allow more residential homes off of one access point. So staff has been discussing allowing more than 30 homes off of one access point since the 2018 IFC does allow for up to 120 homes off of one access point if the development meets certain exceptions, which I've included in your packet. And staff brought this subject up at a mayor and council work session in December. The council did not want to allow 120 homes with those exceptions. So they proposed a max of 80 residential units be allowed if the developer meets those exceptions set forth in the International Fire Code. So basically, we're kind of meeting in the middle of the fire code. And I think this was discussed when we kind of went through the UDC rewrite. I don't know if y'all remember this, but this was kind of one of those issues that we talked about, and we talked about mirroring the fire code completely and saying if you meet all these exceptions, you can have 120 homes off of a single access point. We stuck with 30, but I think now staff and based off discussions with council, they're open to the idea of bumping that up to 80 if you can meet those exceptions within that portion of the fire code. And staff recommends approval.
Ashley, looking at these exceptions, if we were to recommend approval to increase to 80 as proposed, if someone has a single access, take for instance the new development that is nearing final plat on Alcova, it was originally platted and designed for 30 lots. There's a total of 100 acres there. When they built, they left an opportunity for later to extend to the back 60 acres to get more lots. One of the issues they had were number of lots or number of units being 30 on a single point of access, and then water. So for that development, should they able to get their requirements for water and looping a water system, they could potentially come back and get up to 80 lots. But in order to do so, would they have to put a sprinkler system in or create a secondary means of egress some way through one of these exceptions?
Yes, they would have to meet one of these exceptions, so they could sprinkler every house if they wanted to, which would be,
That's not bad.
It's not bad. It's expensive. So that's, if a developer wants to do that, be my guest type deal. But they would have to meet one of these exceptions. I don't see them ripping up the road and widening it or doing something like that. But
or they could right here request a waiver from the local fire marshal if adequate access is provided. So that the fire marshal, Chief Sadell, could say, yeah, that main road is adequate. I can get a truck in there and service 80 houses, no problem. Is that
correct?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems fair. I'm familiar with residential sprinkler systems. They're not that much more expensive to add to the house, but what the issue that I've seen is people don't do the annual maintenance and certification, so they'll shut the valve off so that it doesn't work. It helps them to have it, especially on initial installation. It helps them on their insurance. It really lowers their insurance. But when they shut the valve off, a lot of times if they don't drain it, and I saw this experience firsthand, then cold weather happens and then they get frozen pipes. But anyway, nonetheless, that's one option they have to get more houses. The other is getting the fire chief and the local building official to release a waiver, and I think that's probably the likely scenario in that one case that I mentioned, because I don't see them getting a fire access road any other way because it is a narrow and long piece of property. Okay, any other comments, questions?
One question.
Can you turn your microphone on? Sorry.
Does it make sense to anyone else if you're gonna do 80 units, single entrance, provided they meet these, to add in a certain distance from the main entrance of no parking on the street?
So you could do that project specific. I know we have a neighborhood that does have that here in the city, but I don't think you can add it to this text amendment. But if there was a residential development coming forward with a rezone that was proposing, I want 80 homes off of a single access point, this is the exception that I'm going to go for. You could then condition that property to say, we'll give you the rezone with the condition that you have no parking on either side of the street for 300 feet, or what have you.
So in the case this goes through whatever, and then someone comes for rezone or approval, whatever, then that's when that could be brought up.
Yeah, you can definitely.
You don't have to have it in the text.
You can do it on a case-by-case basis. We can also do it in the text. That's something that is doable. I don't have it in the text right now, and I would probably have to talk with our attorneys just to make sure that everything's kosher. But I think.
And I'm not saying we have to. I'm just.
Yeah, but for a rezone, you can condition those rezones on a case-by-case basis. So, like, for example, we'll use our two new developments that we have going in, Connor Springs and Westland Park. Connor Springs has multiple entrances, so if you saw that plan and you said, you know what, anybody can park on the street, that's fine. But you saw Westland Park and you said, okay, before we rezone this, we're going to condition it. There's going to be no parking on either side for 100 feet. You can definitely condition it. If we want to make that standard across the board, though, that would be when we add it into the ordinance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense to do case by case.
And you bring that up, and even with Connor Springs, I think
It's not good practice.
I think that if on-street parking in residential subdivisions is becoming an issue, and there is one issue, and it's in Laurel Oaks, people do that. And the city has put no parking and striped the curbs, and I know you're looking it up now. I'm not familiar enough with why the city did that no parking, striped it yellow and all that, for that one subdivision.
I know the discussions, but I don't know.
Well, and I don't know if it was something that it was just an order by the council, or if it was an ordinance that is in a UDC that I haven't run across.
I don't think it's in the UDC because it is very specific to Laurel Oaks. I think there was an issue with on-street parking in Jubilee, but it self-corrected. But I don't know if for some reason in Laurel Oaks it didn't self-correct.
Isn't that amazing? Jubilee has the smallest lots, the highest density on the square foot, and they don't
The
have an
most
issue
narrow
with it.
roads.
But, subdivision with 1+ acre lots, the issues are abundant.
I'm not.
I know what the rumor mill said it was, and I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
As an official stance, but just wondering if
That's not a bad thought, though.
consider with it only being one entrance. As you said, you don't have the luxury of multiple entrances.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something to think.
That's not a bad thought.
And you are more than welcome to make a motion with that, to add that into it. I just have to, I'm not sure that, we may have to do a whole separate on-street parking section to cover that, if we wanted to swipe it across the board. But if it's about comfortability, basically. If you're comfortable doing it on a case-by-case basis, that's one thing. You can condition it as part of the rezone. That's not to say you'll see every single residential subdivision.
To that point, the case-by-case sounds like probably a better idea to me, because not every situation is, may require it, depending on the situations of how it's being built or whatever. So, no, I'm fine with that. That makes sense.
I think I remember asking the question one time in one of our meetings about the street parking. Right. Take for instance on Mother's Day, Christmas, or something like that.
You're talking about street parking in residential neighborhoods?
Park inside the streets.
Yeah. I wish I was more well versed in our traffic regulations, but I'm not. That is probably a good question for the PD, but I don't believe there's anything, unless it's a no parking zone. I don't think there's really anything that prohibits people from parking on the street, unless it's a no parking zone or like a commercial vehicle in a residential area. Those are the only two times where I think if somebody's car's been sitting there for 2 weeks, we might tag it, that kind of thing. But on holidays and stuff like that, I think our guys are pretty understanding about, it's Christmas, people have folks over, driveways just aren't big enough to fit everybody's car and everything. So I definitely understand. But I don't think there's anything in our ordinances that prohibit on-street parking.
I didn't get the text that has that table in it. Mine started D.
Okay.
That's okay.
No. But I can pull it up because I want you guys to see what the amendment, like the.
Well, what I was looking, I was trying to read ahead of that section to see if there was a common sense approach.
Oh,
to be able to
yeah.
Put in the parking restriction.
Why did it do it like that? Because that doesn't even show. That doesn't even show where I changed anything.
Yeah, and that's even table D, not C.
Yeah. So basically, all we did was.
Spain tourist. Are you going to Spain?
I wish.
And let the record show that there's no one that's
We're not holding
signed
anyone
in-
up.
that's signed in to speak for or against. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing.
Where was I doing here? So basically what the edit was is, oh my gosh, access management. So I took this table here and I added a little asterisk here, and then I added oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I added a row here with the asterisk that said up to 80 lots if it meets the exception set forth by the
IFC.
section 120-3-3-.04 E7 of the rules and regulations of Georgia State Fire Marshal's Office. So I really apologize that was not in y'all's packets.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, discussion items?
Did you get what you needed to see about the?
Yeah.
Most of it's about interparcel access and connectivity right there.
Yep. And then just above it, right, go up, all developments should have
Just
access
have
built
access,
right
yeah.
away. So if you're gonna put an asterisk, you're gonna change that to 80 or fewer?
It's going to be 30 or fewer with an asterisk, and then down here,
Okay.
the asterisk says you can have up to 30 if you meet these
So-
regulations.
So it's not prescriptive that they can do 80?
Yes.
Okay.
I in my opinion, that still keeps the intent of the ordinance to not. We don't want to have a ton of 80 unit off of one access point. I mean, I think if Chief Zadell was here, he'd probably agree with me. But this does open it up for developers. It's not as much as the fire code does allow, but it does give them some leeway to kind of massage their developments to have a little bit more
Flexibility
flexibility
and design.
and design. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Any other?
Just to be clear, what we're voting on is the 80 units if they meet the standards by the state.
Correct.
Okay.
One of those exceptions. No other discussion, Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, we gotta make a motion. We gotta make a motion on the text amendment first.
You don't wanna make a motion on that, huh?
Last one to get here and the first one better.
The motion
Yes, ma'am.
from the 30 units to the 80 residents
And that's a motion to recommend.
that we.
Recommend approval of the text amendment.
And I second the motion.
Okay, so, a motion to recommend approval as proposed, and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Motion passed unanimous. Now, do we have any upcoming news, comments that staff would like to present?
I don't have anything other than we will be meeting in February. So we did get an application for that. And we will, barring any crazy weather emergencies like another snowstorm, we'll get your packets out on time this go round.
Okay. Now, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay. We have a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.